You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.
3, 2, 1, 0.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls? Welcome to another episode of Habs After Dark. Bienvenue tout le monde à une autre épisode de Bleu, Blanc, Rouge, Nuit, votre émission d'après-match des Canadiens de Montréal. Ce soir, une victoire de 3-2 en lancer de prolongation contre les Jets de Winnipeg. The Canadiens with a 3-2 victory. They bounce back from last night's loss to the Ottawa Senators, and they take the win in a shootout over the Winnipeg Jets. Much better effort, I think, by the team tonight. Much better performance. I always hate to use the word effort because it implies that the team is not working hard enough or not applying themselves. I think they certainly are working hard every time they go on the ice. But tonight, the performance certainly was better. I thought they looked like a more cohesive unit, and they worked a little bit together. There were some mixing up of the lines tonight, and we'll talk about that. If you're watching on TikTok, guys, I invite you to come over to YouTube. Our channel on YouTube is called Recliner Sports 4. We're live on YouTube at the moment, and we will be responding to your questions and comments over here on YouTube. If you are watching the show, then I certainly invite you to post your questions and comments. I certainly prefer to have a conversation and a discussion about the game than just to, run off at my mouth the whole time and be the only one talking. So I certainly would love for you guys to comment, question, and we will hopefully be able to answer your questions. On est capable aussi de vous répondre en français. Alors, si vous avez des questions ou des commentaires en français, vous pouvez les donner dans la section de commentaires ici à YouTube. Si vous êtes sur TikTok, venez ici chez notre émission de YouTube, Recliner Sports 4. C'est notre canal de YouTube. Alors, si vous venez ici, vous pouvez joindre à la conversation. Si vous n'êtes pas encore membre de Recliner Sports à YouTube, vous pouvez pousser sur le bouton en bas et joindre à notre communauté. C'est une place pour parler au sujet des Canadiens. On se rejoint après chaque match des Canadiens pour en parler du match, pour en parler des Canadiens et de la LNH en général. Alors, si ça vous intéresse, on vous aimerait bien avoir chez nous, partie de notre communauté de Recliner Sports. If you're not yet a part of our community, if you want to join up with us, hit the subscribe button down below. Become part of the community. We are trying to grow a community, a place where we can all come together after a game and talk about the team, the game, and the NHL in general. So if that's interesting to you, then I certainly invite you to tap that subscribe button and join our family here. We are trying to get to 500 subscribers. We're still about 25 short of that, and so any subscription helps, and we certainly would love for you to join us. I'm told by the by the YouTube algorithm that only about 30% of the people who watch the show are actually subscribed. So we certainly would like to improve that number. And if you're watching live and or in a replay, then feel free to hit that button. And if you like what you see, if you enjoy the content, give us a thumbs up. So what did we think about tonight's game, guys? I would love to have your thoughts, your comments about the game, what you thought the Canadiens did well tonight, what you thought they maybe struggled at, if there were any specific players that you were impressed by tonight, or ones that might have disappointed you. Let me know. I'd be happy to talk about it with you. Si vous avez des commentaires à propos du match, s'il y a des joueurs qui t'ont impressionné ce soir, vous pouvez me le dire dans la section de commentaires. Si vous avez des rapports sur le match, s'il y a quelque chose que tu as aimé, des choses que vous n'avez pas aimé, j'aimerais bien les savoir et on peut avoir une discussion sur les commentaires. So, let me know what you think of the game, guys. Tonight, for me, I thought the Canadiens did a much better job of playing their own game. I don't think they were as concerned about what the Winnipeg Jets were going to do as much as they were about what they were going to do. They went out there. They played with speed. They played with within their systems. I thought they still struggled a little bit at times in their defensive zone. They struggled a little bit with their reads and their ability to kill some plays in their own zone. But I thought they were much better in the neutral zone, and their transition game was certainly improved, definitely from last night, but even from the last couple games. I thought they looked a lot better. They used their speed a little bit more. They certainly weren't out looking for the big hits, although they did get them. I think it was a good lesson, if they were paying attention, is that, you don't have to go looking for hits. They're going to present themselves to you in the NHL, and, you don't really have to focus on that. If you want to hit, the opportunity to do so is going to be there. So you don't really have to sort of make that a focus point or a focal point of your game. The opportunities will arise, and so if you just play within your systems and within your game, the chances to make some hits will certainly come. Line changes. There were some changes to the lineup tonight. The coaching staff decided to move Juraj Slafkovsky back up to the first line. So Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slafkovsky were reunited. That meant there was an opening on the second line with Demidov and Kapanen and Alexander Texier. Alexandre Texier was brought up from the bottom six to fill that spot. Zachary Bolduc was removed from the first line and moved all the way down to the so-called fourth line. I don't know. I don't really distinguish that much between the third and the fourth line right now on the Canadiens. To me, whatever line Evans is on is typically what I view to be the fourth line. But certainly, insofar as ice time is concerned, the Veleno line, I guess, was technically speaking the fourth line tonight. Let me just have a look what the ice time was. The Veleno line, Veleno had under 10 minutes of ice time. Bolduc had 8 minutes of ice time. And Jared Davidson had 8 minutes of ice time as well. So I guess, if you're looking by way of ice time, the Veleno, Bolduc, and Davidson line was the fourth line. The Canadiens, of course, that means they reunited Anderson, Evans, and Gallagher for the first time in quite a while, which I'm happy to see. I think that line works really, really well together. They certainly did last year when they were together, and I like to see them, on the same line, and I think that's a good move. I'm happy to see the first line back together. Even though Slafkovsky, did look good on a line with Demidov and Kapanen, and he certainly brought some life to those two guys, and there was some chemistry there for sure. I do believe that the best option for Montreal is to have him on the first line playing with Caulfield and Suzuki. Whether or not Texier is the best option on the second line with Kapanen and Demidov, I'm not sure. I think I would like to see Bolduc there. I can't wait to see Doc there when he is able to come back from his broken foot injury. I think if Doc can get back to where he was before he got hurt, then I think it would be fun to see him on that line with Demidov and Kapanen for sure. But in the meantime, I think it probably your best option would be Demidov, Kapanen, and Bolduc. I will say that I believe that Bolduc was being sent a message by Martin St. Louis by being put on the fourth line and being given the least amount of ice of any player on the team tonight. I think the message was being sent that I don't think he was very impressed with Bolduc's performance in the last couple of games. Certainly last night's game in Ottawa. I don't know if you guys were able to catch the post-game press conference, but he did talk about players not giving their full effort and not, the mental attitude that they were bringing to the game. He certainly mentioned that. He didn't name any names, obviously, but you can put two and two together and read between the lines a little bit, and perhaps see who he was talking about when you look at the lineup changes that were brought into the game tonight. So you had Bolduc was moved to the fourth line, and you had Florian Jacki taken out of the lineup and was replaced by Jared Davidson. So you can draw your own conclusions there. I'm not a mind reader, but again, if your coach is talking about certain players having some issues with the mental effort or the mental aspect of their game, and then the next night one guy is dropped from the first line to the fourth line and another is dropped from the lineup altogether, then you can maybe draw your own conclusions and take whatever you want from that. So personally, I was kind of happy to hear about the lineup changes. I was never in love with taking Slafkovsky off of the first line, even though he did, like I say, play relatively well in his new role. But I do think that it is the best. The Canadiens get the best value out of having those three guys back together, and I think tonight they showed that they are the best option for the team. And it was nice to see that Slafkovsky brought some of that newfound confidence that he had picked up over the last 3 or 4 games. Carrying the puck and whatever, he seems to have brought that to the first line, and wasn't just out there making room for his line mates, along the boards and winning those battles. He was, also contributing a little bit in the middle of the ice and moving the puck around, and showed a little bit more confidence and a little bit more execution on that side of the game. What else do we want to talk about? Obviously, I'm very happy to see Evans, Anderson, and Gallagher. If you've been a regular on this show, I've talked about it before. I love those three guys together. I think they bring the best out of each other. I think that Gallagher plays better in that role. I think, a lot of people have kind of noticed, there's certainly been commentary on social media about Gallagher's performance of late. He looks a little slower. He is struggling. He's when Gallagher's not playing well, he looks slow, and he's oftentimes falling down without being hit. If you ever notice that about him, and I think we've seen a little bit more of that over the last couple weeks. And I think honestly, it's he's a guy who I think plays better when he gets less ice time, and I think he's also better, in a bit of a lesser role in the lineup, right? So, last year I think we saw him improve his game when he was only playing, 11 or 12 minutes a game. Tonight he played 13 minutes, and so I think Gallagher's body is beaten up, and for him, I think that his ability to play more than 12 or 13 minutes a game is maybe past for him, and that time has passed. And so I think that some of the struggles he's had of late probably, in my view, is the result of him probably being asked to do a little bit too much. And so putting him back on the Evans Anderson line puts him back in a chair that I think he's more suited for. And I think, like I said, the three of those guys complement each other quite well. I think they're comfortable with each other. There's chemistry there, and I really like the way they play together. Sorry, guys, I get a little bit of a cold going on here. I apologize for that. So, without further ado, let's get to the scoreboard, gang, and we'll have a look at that real quickly. So as I said, it was a 3-2 victory in a shootout for the Montreal Canadiens. Um, the the Jets opened the scoring late in the first period. And this is where I guess this was another talking point that I wanted to talk about, something that the Canadiens maybe need to give some thought to a little bit. The first period, this is something we're seeing a little bit from the Canadiens, is they come out and they play quite well, and they get a number of scoring opportunities, but they're not able to convert. And then the play kind of goes the other way, and the other team scores, and it kind of takes all the air out of their sails, and they kind of collapse a little bit. So tonight, the Canadiens, I thought, carried the play in the first period. I think they were the better team. They certainly deserved a better fate in the first period than being down 1-0. However, they weren't able to convert on their opportunities, and that's not just the shots they got, but some of the shots that they missed. I think there were probably at least 5 or 6 super high quality scoring opportunities in that first period. And while Eric Comrie, certainly played really well and made some enormous saves in that period of time, I think there was also a situation where the Canadiens sometimes need to bear down a little bit more and bury those opportunities. I think there was a Mike Matheson shot over the net. There were a few, different opportunities to score that went begging in that first period. And, of course, Scheifele, against the run of play, scores late in the period and gives the Jets a lead going into the first intermission. We've seen in the past that could be an invitation for the Canadiens to sort of to fall apart a little bit, to lose their way. Fortunately, tonight they didn't do that. They were able to stick with their game in the second period. They did manage to finally get a power play midway through the second period, and then Slavkovsky scored a nice goal on a setup from Caulfield and Suzuki, very similar to the goal that Slavkovsky scored in last night's game. Suzuki gets the puck down low below the red line to Caulfield. Caulfield feeds Slavkovsky, who's standing in the low slot, right on the doorstep of Eric Comrie's crease, and he buries the shot. Last night, of course, the pass from Caulfield was cross crease. Tonight, it was Slavkovsky was parked directly in front of the net. The Jets do come back a couple of minutes later on a goal from Kyle Connor, from Velarde and Scheifele. So the same trio that combined on the first goal combined on the second goal. But the Canadiens score a goal to tie it up again about another 2 minutes after that. A really sharp play by Demidov. Demidov goes into the corner, wins a battle, and somehow, while he's winning the battle, he's registered in his brain that Kapanen is coming in, flashing across the high slot, and he just feeds him a perfect pass right on the tape. And Kapanen, with no hesitation, one-times it past the Winnipeg goalie, who really had very little chance on the play. Alexander Texier gets the other assist on that play. But again, Demidov just with a spectacular, again, I don't even know how he even knew Kapanen was there, but he did, and it worked. And it was a very impressive play to watch. Third period, no scoring. Both teams, heading into that third period on a 2-2 tie. Whichever team wins the third period wins the game, and they both battle. I thought the Canadiens played well in the third period, but neither team was able to score. We head to overtime. Really, really exciting overtime period. I don't know what the shots were in the overtime period. Let's see what the shots. I think the Canadiens dominated the over. Yeah, the Canadiens outshot Winnipeg 5-1 in the overtime. That one shot from Winnipeg resulted in a spectacular save by Dobesh. The Canadiens had a number of chances to score. Matheson with a wide open one-timer from the high slot, and his stick shatters in his hands. Cole Caulfield made a nice play. A number of nice plays by the Canadiens. The Canadiens are a really dominant team when it comes to 3-on-3. I mean, they can put Caulfield and Suzuki out there. They can put out Demidov and Kapanen. Joe Veleno got out there a couple times tonight. Veleno was dominant in the face-off circle tonight, so he reaped the benefit of that. Had a really, really special game, but nobody was able to score in the overtime. So they go to the shootout, and Cole Caulfield shoots first for the Montreal Canadiens, and he's able to beat Eric Comrie 5-hole, and that's it. No one else is able to score. Kyle Connor is stopped by Dobesh. Alexander Texier is stopped by Comrie. Mark Scheifele is stopped by Dobesh, and Nick Suzuki is then stopped by Comrie, and then Gabe Velarde is unable to score. So nobody scores on Dobesh, and Cole Caulfield scores the only goal in the shootout and gets the game winner. So really nice game for the Canadiens. An entertaining game, regardless of what team you're cheering for. I think it was an entertaining game, and yeah, I mean we're glad the Canadiens won, but it was a pretty evenly matched game in all aspects. I think the Canadiens probably, I think I would say that the Canadiens carried the play a little bit more than the Jets did. But yeah, it could have gone either way. Frank, welcome. It was nice to see the Montreal Canadiens play a good defensive game, which helped the goalie. Yeah, I thought the Canadiens played better tonight than they did last night in their own zone. I think there were periods of time where they struggled a little bit in their own zone with the coverage, and maybe a few tough reads, but I don't know. I thought they did much better in the neutral zone, like I said earlier, and they certainly did a really fantastic job of forechecking in the offensive zone and creating turnovers in Winnipeg's end. There were a number of opportunities, especially in the first period, where there was one opportunity where there was a turnover. Suzuki got the puck, went in all alone in on the goalie, was stopped, and then Cole Caulfield got the puck and had an even better opportunity, and then Comrie stone cold stoned him. And what are you going to do? But the Canadiens were doing a really good job of creating those turnovers in the offensive zone tonight. I think I'd like to look at the numbers. I mean, it says here that the Canadiens only created 5 takeaways tonight. I don't know how a takeaway is judged by the NHL stat keepers, but I don't know. I don't know how those numbers. But again, I thought they certainly did a good job of that tonight. Let's go back to the scoreboard here real quickly, gang, and we'll have a look at some of the advanced stats. The Corsi tonight, dead even, 70-69. So shot attempts, again, that's an indicator of possession as well. So the possession was pretty even. The shots were even at 31. The Canadiens out-hit the Jets 25-22. The Canadiens dominated the faceoff circle, I think, largely on the back of Joe Veleno and Oliver Kapanen tonight. Joe Veleno in particular, I can't remember. I'd like to see what Joe Veleno's final numbers were tonight in the faceoff circle, but the Canadiens were like somewhere around 63% in the faceoff circle tonight. Joe Veleno finished the night with 80% in the faceoff circle. So it doesn't tell me the exact numbers here, I don't think. Will it tell me here? No, it only tells me percentage here. So I could probably find it, but I'm not going to waste your time trying to do that. But yeah, Joe Veleno at 80% on the faceoff. Jake Evans at 73%. Oliver Kapanen was only at 47% and Nick Suzuki at 58%. So pretty decent performance in the faceoff circle by the Canadiens tonight. High danger chances. I'm not sure how this stat is calculated by a natural stat trick, but I dispute again that the Jets had more high danger chances than the Canadiens tonight. I don't think anybody who watched the game would say that was the case, but in any event, they have the Jets with 16 high danger chances and the Canadiens with just 14, and the expected goals favored the Canadiens at 4.32 to 3.65. So again, I think what those numbers tell me is that the Canadiens probably carried the play a little bit, but the game was relatively tight. Jakub Dobesh had a great game. Did more than enough to keep the Canadiens in it. He finished with a save percentage of .935. His expected, he's 1.65 goals saved above expected. But Eric Comrie as well, 2.32 goals saved above expected. So pretty good game by both goaltenders. Both goaltenders gave their teams a chance to win, but the Canadiens fortunately were able to pull things out in the shootout. I think Slav picked up his game tremendously, and could we say about Ivan, but now the kid is amazing. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Again, I think that Slavkovsky's game has certainly improved over the last week and a half or so, specifically when it comes to, his puck handling and the offensive side of, the skill aspects of the game, carrying the puck, passing the puck, getting his shot away a little bit better. However, I think he's played well all year. I just don't think it's been as showy. I mean, I thought I think he's done a great job since the beginning of the season with, winning his battles along the boards, being a little bit more physical. I mean, he doesn't lose very many battles along the boards, both with his, size from a weight perspective, but also with his length, right? You see him, oftentimes he'll tie a player up, but then he'll be using his stick at length to keep the puck away from that player. And I think he's been doing that all year round. But as far as his offensive production goes, you're right. I think he is gaining a little bit of confidence in that sense. And tonight it was nice to see him rejoin that first line and get another goal. And I think we will see his offensive production continue to pick up. As far as Demidov goes, I mean, tonight he was special. Like I said last night, I do still wait for the day where, he has that game where he kind of just explodes and just like dominates and puts up 3 or 4 points and just really puts it all together and gains that confidence. Like right now, he's still, he's trying things, but he just can't, he's that close, right, to making these great plays. He's getting his shot away and just missing the net, or he's getting, making one move on one guy, but then losing the puck to the second guy. And it's just, he's just that close to getting it. And I think there's going to come a game here shortly where, things just click for him and he's able to not just, figure it out, but also to gain that confidence that will allow him to then, take that into future games as well. So you're right. The kid is amazing. I think what did they say? He's about to turn 20 years old on December the 10th. And so, he's still 19, still has a long track in front of him. And I really look forward to seeing him improve and get better as time goes on. So we're not getting a lot of questions and comments, guys. Frank, thank you very much. I appreciate your questions and comments. But if there's anybody out there, if you have any questions or anything you want to say about the game, let us know. I'm happy to respond to whatever. If there were parts of the game that you thought were good, or parts of the game that you thought were bad, or if there were specific players that you thought did really, really well tonight or didn't, then let us know. And I'm happy to have a chat with you about it. I'd love to have a conversation. I don't, as I always say, I don't want to sit here and talk at you guys. I'd rather talk with you guys. Aussi en français, si vous avez des questions, des commentaires en français, j'aimerais bien vous répondre, vous parler, avoir une discussion avec vous. Alors, donne-moi tes commentaires, tes questions dans la section de commentaires. So, if there's not going to be any questions or comments, then maybe we'll just move to the A team. If you do have any questions or comments about the A team, if you have your own, I mean, the A team, guys, as you know, is our version here at Recliner Sports. It's our version of the stars of the game. We picked the 4 players, or I picked the 4 players who I think contributed the most to the Canadiens' performance, or were the best players on the ice for Montreal. Sometimes everybody agrees with me, sometimes they don't. But I'm happy to discuss it. So I'm going to tell you who my 4 best players were, and if you think it was somebody else, then let me know. If you think I've left somebody off, then I'd be happy to hear that. And if you think that I've included somebody that doesn't belong there, I'd be happy to hear that as well. Come on over, Aaron, to YouTube. Join our YouTube channel, Aaron, and if you have questions and want to talk about the game, come on over here. I see on TikTok we've got Luca, Captain Crochet, JK83, Jordan Zimmerman. I see you as well. Aaron is there. Braid, Ziad, Shikoku, Lil Red, Abdul. All you guys, come on over to our channel here and let us know what you think about the game. I'm happy to talk to you about it here, but I can't really respond to your questions on TikTok while I'm on the YouTube show at the moment. So here are the A-team members for tonight. So tonight, guys, for the A-team, I have Lane Hudson, Ivan Demidov, Joe Veleno, and Jakub Dobesh. So happy to hear your thoughts on that. If you think I'm crazy and picked 4 guys who don't belong there, let me know. What's up, Jordan? Let me know what you think. If there's guys that you don't think belong on the list or guys that I left off, I'm happy to respond. Lane Hudson for me tonight just had another solid Lane Hudson night. He looked good in most respects. His defensive game was solid. I thought that the Jets tried to take advantage of him physically a little bit, and he certainly stood up to that early in the game. I don't know if you noticed it. There was an elbow in the head from Nino Niederreiter, and then a bit of a punch in the head, and he managed to do his job. He won a number of battles along the boards against guys who were significantly better than him. He moved the puck well, and he was dangerous in the offensive zone, even though he wasn't able to register any points tonight. He got 2 shots on goal. So yeah, I thought he had a really good game tonight for me. Ivan Demidov, we've talked about it already a little bit. Again, I still think there's more there from Demidov, but tonight he made a number of spectacular plays. He built on that third period from last night's game, where he was probably the best player on the ice for the Canadiens in the end of the game. Set up that really nice goal to Kapanen, and just looked great. I thought he's coming into his own, and again, I'm just waiting for that day when he figures it all out and has that one game where he breaks out. Joe Veleno. Again, I think some people might disagree with me here. There's a lot of Joe Veleno haters out there, but again, 80% in the face-off circle tonight. He's out on the ice in important situations. He's killing penalties. I know he doesn't have a lot of points this year. I think he's only got 1 or 2 points all year, and people are jumping all over his back. But honestly, if you've got a problem with Joe Veleno, I think you have a problem with expectations. And Joe Veleno is doing everything that could possibly be expected of him and more. He's playing in a bottom 6 role. He's being asked to do things that perhaps are not super comfortable for him, but he's doing it, and he's doing it well. And tonight was a perfect example of that. He's out on the ice in overtime, taking faceoffs. He's on the ice in the final minutes of a tie game. Because the coaching staff, I think, feels comfortable with him, because they know that they can trust him to go and do the little details that need to be done to make sure that you're not helping the other team, right? Marty St. Louis loves that, right? Don't do things that help the other team, and he's confident now that Joe Veleno isn't going to do those things. So I think he did very deserving of being recognized for his performance tonight, and not just tonight, but I think he's been pretty solid for the last several weeks. I've had no problem with Joe Veleno, and frankly, the criticism that he's getting has been a little bit bewildering to me. I don't understand why people have so much problems with him. I don't get it. The guy was brought in to be a 13th forward. In a perfect world, he wouldn't be in the lineup at all. But there's been some injuries. He's been pressed into action. And since being asked to play the role that he's been asked to play, he's done it, more than adequately. I got no problem with Joe Veleno. The 4-star is going to be Jakub Dobesh. Jakub Dobesh tonight did everything he had to do to give the Canadiens a chance to win. This could have easily gone the other way. Like I said, it was a pretty evenly matched game between the two teams, but Jakub Dobesh stood up and did his job, and made 29 saves in regulation and overtime, and allowed the Canadiens to win the game in the shootout. I don't know that either of the goals he allowed were ones that you can blame him for. I thought he played well tonight. He made a great save in overtime, and again, like I said, all you really can ask for from your goaltender is that he plays well enough to give you a chance to win. And that was sort of the hallmark of Samuel Montembeault last season, right? Everyone, kind of questioned whether or not he was a real number one goalie in the NHL. And, the bottom line for Montembeault is, his calling card when he's playing well is that, he makes the saves that he needs to make to give your team a chance to win. And that's what Dobeš did tonight. And I thought he did it really, really well. So, again, it doesn't mean that he's back. It doesn't mean that, that everything's going to be perfect going forward. But, I think it means that, he had a good game, right? Just like we saw Montembeault have a really good game against Las Vegas, and then he struggled a little bit last night. I hope certainly that Dobeš can carry this on. But we shall see. We shall see. So those are my members of the A team for tonight: Lane Hudson, Ivan Demidov, Joe Veleno, and Jakub Dobeš. Like I said, if you have other players that you think should be there, then certainly let me know in the comment section. If you're watching in a replay, then you can you certainly let me know there, and I'm happy to respond either in the next show or written in the comment section. I'd love to hear your input and get your feedback. And let me know what you think. So I got some comments here. Frank says, seems to me that every time Gallagher creates things, it's like a spark plug. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the role that Gallagher has always played with the Canadiens, right? Like, I mean, he's always been a bit of a spark plug, an energy kind of guy. I think that, historically, when he first came to the league, I think he brought a little bit more offense to the equation than he does now. Obviously, I think his body's been ravaged a little bit by injury. He's slowed down a little bit. But, when you partner him with Evans and Anderson and put him in that, that energy role, I think it's the best place for him. Then Frank says, it's good to see that you had the goalie. I'm not sure 4-star. The rest is good. What do you mean you're not sure 4-star? Those stars are not in any type of order, Frank. There's no order to them. They're all equal. I don't number them. The main reason why Dobeš is at the end is because I'm superstitious, and I don't like to put the goalie on the A team until the game is over, because I don't want to jinx anything. While the game is still going on. I think I was pretty confident that Dobeš was going to be on the A team, from midway through the third period on, but I didn't want to put him on the graphic until the game was over. I appreciate it, Frank. PLW, welcome back. A team for PLW is Kapanen, Demidov, Texier, and Dobeš. So we're in agreement on two of them. I don't have any issue with Kapanen being there as well. I think that perhaps I think that perhaps some of the other guys are maybe a little bit more deserving. I think I like Veleno there. I think Veleno deserves some recognition for what he did tonight. But yeah, I mean, I got no problem. Texier, I thought, played well. Texier, I mean, I just feel like he's just not quite there. It's like his skating is good and he's pretty good with, but he's just, I don't know. There's just, maybe he just needs to get a little bit more comfortable out there. Either just with the team in general or with that line in particular. If you could get any realistic player for Montreal, who would it be? I mean, if you've listened to me, Jordan, you'll know that I'm not a big, I'm not big on the Canadiens making a ton of moves. Honestly, I'm happy with the team as it is. I'm happy to have the team let things grow. I'm happy happy for them to let the players develop. I'm not on the bandwagon of the Canadiens need to go out and get a second line center. I don't believe they need a second line center. If they could get a player, at a good deal who fits their plan and, can be, a member of the team for the future, then I've got no problem with that. But I'm not a big, go and sign, you know, Kadri or O'Reilly or Crosby or any number of these other guys that people are saying the Canadiens should go out and get. I don't want them to go out and get a guy who's going to play second line center for the next 2 or 3 years and then retire. I'd much rather see them build that from within or go and get a younger guy, and I don't want them to spend a fortune doing it. So I don't. It's a tough question for me to answer, Jordan, because I'm not really a guy who's out there sort of dreaming about, oh, what if we had this guy or what if we could bring that guy in. I'm not really my approach. Randy and Broncos. Your A team is Dobesh, Demidov, Evans, and Caulfield. Yeah, that's good picks too. I'm not sure Evans for me had the game tonight that I would have put him there. But Caulfield for sure. I can see that. Caulfield had a good game. Nice setup on the Slafkovsky goal, and then of course the overtime winner. All the while playing, the typical solid two-way game that he plays. PLW Kapanen was the most used forward for the Canadiens tonight. Is that true? Slafkovsky was the most used forward. Well, they were tied. Slafkovsky, Suzuki, and Kapanen were essentially the exact same ice time for tonight. But yeah, that's good for Kapanen, man. We all know that Marty St. Louis likes Kapanen and has his trust, and so it's it's interesting to see that. MSL finishing the game in the third with Kapanen, Demidov, and Texier was kind of a message. Yeah, I think that obviously I think St. Louis has come under a little bit of heat for not giving Demidov enough ice time of late, and I think he admitted that he's not doing Demidov justice with the ice time that he's giving him, and I think he probably looks to change that. And I think tonight he had the opportunity to do so. But I think you're right; it does send a huge message. As far Marty St. Louis, I think, is very, very big on trust and who can I trust to put on the ice in certain situations. And Demidov is somebody who up until now. It didn't look like he had earned that trust yet from the coaching staff. And by being on the ice, like you said, in that, in those last minutes of a tie game, I think is maybe an indication that, that trust might be coming. And I thought that Demidov earned that trust and paid the coach back for that trust by playing a solid two-way game. I thought he did really, really well. Randy just came on, but just wanted to give a shout out to Markov and his outstanding Habs career. Absolutely. What a classy guy. What a classy organization. And the Canadiens, recognize and honor their players probably better than any team in the league. It was nice to see them honor Markov because of the way that he ended up leaving Montreal. I think it was unfortunate that they kind of, the previous administration kind of treated him badly on the way out the door. And it was nice to see that those fences were mended a little bit tonight, and that, he was able to come and be honored to speak and to, show that he's a classy guy and that he doesn't sort of hold any grudge about that, and that he's prepared to move on, and the team has kind of finally done the right thing by somebody who's arguably one of the 5 or 6 best defensemen in the history of the organization. After 3 games, Marty St. Louis finishes his game with Texier. He does see something in him that he likes. Yeah, I think tonight. Again, Texier is a veteran guy. I think, the thing with St. Louis is that, to put him on the ice in a situation like that, it's more about trusting him not to make any mistakes or to do something that's going to help the other team. So that's kind of where, I look at it. I mean, for him to be somebody, who earns maybe a more permanent role on the team, I think he's going to have to, improve his offensive side of his game, because, I don't think he's good enough to be on that second line long term. I don't think he, he can be. I think he's shown signs of it earlier in his career, but at the moment, I think he needs to do a little bit more if he wants to get, a permanent role with those guys when other guys come back from injury. Frank says, I don't want Montreal to lose any player from the main roster on a trade. Certainly the young players. I agree, Frank. I don't want to lose. I'm not prepared to give up any of their, regular players or any of their, top level prospects. When running a bench, it's difficult to manage ice time. Absolutely. I think it's probably, one of the hardest things to do as a new coach, right? Because you're not used to it. You can sit there and watch a game. We do it all the time, right? We talk about, I would do this or I would do that, as far as, player movement and roster building and whatever. But as far as like in the moment, knowing when to put guys on the ice and who to put on, I mean, you don't have time to think about it. You got to do it. And, that's not an easy thing to do. Dobesh deserved the first star tonight. It was given to Caulfield, who was not so good tonight. Yeah, I agree with you that Caulfield probably didn't deserve the first star. I don't know that I would say he was not so good tonight. I don't know that I would agree with you either that Dobesh deserved the first star. I think there were other players who might have deserved it as well. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree completely with that sentiment. Classless Bergevin versus Markov and some other players. Yeah, I mean, we're happy to move on from the previous regime. Robinson, Harvey, Chelios, Savard, Markov. Yeah, I probably would think about putting Guy Lapointe in that conversation as well. I think that's probably the group. I mean, Robinson to me is the clear number one. Then you can probably argue over the rest. But yeah, no, I don't. I mean, there's, maybe you can go back to the 20s and 30s and find some guys as well to put in that list. But yeah, I'm with you on that list. Texier is very dynamic. Yeah, I mean, he can be. He has the ability to be dynamic for sure. I just feel like he still doesn't look like he's fully comfortable out there yet, and maybe when he is, he will be. He's obviously got great hands. His skating, his pace isn't quite there for me at the moment. I thought there were times out there tonight where he looked a little bit slow, but I don't know. I mean, I thought certainly held his own on that line with some pretty dynamic young players. And didn't look out of place, and was able to hold his own on the defensive side of things. Certainly, as you pointed out already, to earn enough trust from Marty St. Louis to be put on the ice late in the game in a tight matchup. So, yeah, in that sense, you're right. I think that that Marty St. Louis does see something there. Again, I think there was an aspect of tonight that was a bit of a punishment for Zachary Bolduc as well. I think if everything else was equal, I think you probably would have been more likely to see Bolduc on that second line role rather than Texier. But I think that there might have been something there going on with Marty St. Louis' opinion or analysis of the way Zachary Bolduc played last night against Ottawa, and even perhaps also in the game against Colorado. So Robinson on Hockey Reference has the Habs all-time best player as per PS Advanced Stats calculation, equivalent of Warren Baseball. Yeah, I mean, I would argue, and I know I would get an argument, but I would argue that Larry Robinson is the second best defenseman of all time. When you look at everything, everything that you would possibly want from a defenseman, the the defensive game, the offensive game, the size, the toughness, from top to bottom, the entire package. Larry Robinson is virtually unmatched. And I think, even in some respects, as a total package, he, might even be better than Bobby Orr, but Bobby Orr was so great and dynamic offensively that I think, it overrides the fact that Robinson was. But I mean, there was a time where Robinson was, not only the best defenseman in the NHL, but he was also the toughest player in the NHL. Like, go and see if you can find a YouTube video of Larry Robinson losing a fight. He didn't lose fights, and he didn't fight lightweights either. He fought everybody. He fought all the guys who are, known to be tough guys, and he fought them all. Well, he didn't fight all of them, but he fought, a lot of them, and he didn't, turn down any fights. He, basically ended the Broad Street Bullies all by himself, right? He's, one, so again, I've got a lot of time for Larry Robinson, and I think you could make the argument that he's I would make the argument that he's the second best defenseman in the history of the NHL. Yeah, I agree. Jamie Milne. I think that Josh Anderson did have a sneaky good game tonight. I love the fact that they've reunited Anderson, Evans, and Gallagher. It's something I've been calling for a while. They're a great combination together. I think they complement each other really, really well. I think they're really good. They're really good together. I think they play better individually when they're together. And I think Anderson knows how to play with Gallagher, and Gallagher knows how to play with Anderson. And I think they play off each other really, really well. I don't think MSL coach in a punishing manner. He doesn't. And I don't mean it that way. I don't mean it as a punishment. I just mean in that, we have seen him in the past move people off of lines or move them down the lineup as a result of, the way that they played. Necessarily punishment is probably not the right word, but I think that he did not like the way that Zachary Bolduc played the last couple games, and I think as a result he moved him down the lineup. Robinson breakout and zone clearing was insane. Yeah, big man, big reach. Again, that's just what he was. He did everything well. Closest to Robinson OA would be Pronger or Weber. I'm not sure what you mean by OA. Those guys were similar. Pronger maybe, but Larry Robinson was a more dynamic skater. He was more dynamic offensively than either of those two guys. He just did everything well, Larry Robinson. And, again, the toughest guy in the NHL. Anytime he was on the ice, he was the toughest guy on the ice. Evans, Gallagher, Anderson line has some chemistry, and they are a great unit. Absolutely. They showed it last year. When they're together, they play well. And, I've been asking for that line to be put back together. He's awesome. Mint Robinson also ahead of Habs forwards like Beliveau, Lafleur, and Richard on the advanced stats calculations. Yeah, it's hard. Advanced stats don't always do well when you're comparing generations. But yeah, again, I think Robinson belongs in that conversation. I think I think that Robinson is one of the underrated players. It's weird because I think people all know that he's great, but I think he should be in the discussion for greatest Habs of all time. He's right in there in the discussion with Beliveau and Maurice Richard and Guy Lafleur and whoever else you want to put in that discussion. I think Robinson is right there. Perhaps if his name was Robinette, again, I don't mean that to be a criticism the way it might sound, but I think that for an Anglophone, he's one of the greatest Montreal Canadiens of all time. And I think you could make the argument. I believe he's the greatest defenseman in the history of the Montreal Canadiens, and like I said, I think he's one of the greatest defensemen, period, in NHL history. Would I see the Habs looking to grab Sherwood? Saw there is some rumors there. I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, if they could get him at a deal, but I mean, Sherwood would be a rental, right? I believe he's a free agent at the end of the year. I don't think the Canadiens are interested in a rental. I don't think they're, you know, I think they understand that they're not building for this year, right? They're not going to go out and sacrifice a whole lot, just so they can, make the playoffs this year, or give themselves a better chance to win, a round or two in the playoffs. I don't think this is the year that they're aiming for. So I don't know that going for a guy like Sherwood makes a lot of sense unless they could get him really, really cheap. I mean, at the end of the day, realistically, Sherwood would be, he would be an upgrade on, Joe Veleno or Alex Texier or whoever, right? And once certain guys, once Doc and Line, if when they come back from injuries, Newhook, is there going to be room for those guys? I don't know. Like Veleno and Texier are probably going to come out of the lineup when Doc and Line and other guys come back. So I don't know that adding Sherwood to the mix really makes much sense. I mean, he might give you some depth, but I don't know. I don't want the Habs to overpay for players. Preferred solution comes from the inside. Yeah, I agree. I mean, I don't want them to. Yeah, I mean, I like your second sentence more than your first sentence, PLW. I don't want them to pay anything, unless they can get the right guy who absolutely fits what they're doing perfectly, and they can get him at a really good price. Then I'm not interested, right? I don't want a guy who's over 30. Period. I don't want a guy who isn't going to be a part of the team for the next 7, 8, 9 plus years. Right? I don't want a guy who is going to come in and people talking about a guy who can bridge the gap between now and Michael Hage, or bridge the gap between now and Alex Jarofsky. No, I don't want to do that. We can bridge the gap with players that we already have in the organization, or they can. The Canadiens can. I hate it when people say we. So that's one of my pet peeves. So, but yeah, I'm with you. Like, I would much rather see them, use what they have in the organization. And if Michael Hage turns out to be Michael Hage, then great. If he doesn't, then we move on to the next one. So, yeah. Slav taking giant steps recently. Should have hear his press interview tonight. It was a gem. I like Slav so much. It was on next to me right here. I had the volume turned off, but I could see he was smiling and laughing. I think he's one of the most entertaining guys to listen to, interviewed by of all the Montreal Canadiens players. I love watching his interviews. Typically, if I'm watching the Canadiens interviews, I usually skip ahead to see Marty St. Louis, but I'll also always stop to see what Slav has to say. Cole Caulfield can be interesting at times. But the other guys are not. I mean, not that it's not a criticism of them, but again, it can get a little bit stale and boring. Some of the others. So, Kapanen actually checks all the boxes of a second line center. Maybe. I don't know about all the boxes. I don't know that he has the offensive dynamism that you would want in a second line center on a Stanley Cup caliber team. If Oliver Kapanen is your third line center, then you are an elite team, I think. Right? I mean, if he's your third line center, you're ready for prime time. If you've got a guy of that caliber and that quality playing on the third line, and you've got players surrounding him that are at a similar a similar ability level, then I think you're cooking with fire. As far as the second line center, yeah, he's fine there. I don't again, it's not the end of the world if you have him there, but you're not I don't think you're a dominating offensive team with him as your second line center. Like, you're not a dominant, you're not a Colorado Avalanche. I mean, I shouldn't say that. You can be. Don't get me wrong. And if he's playing with, if Demidov turns out to be, the player that we think he can be, then, yeah, it could happen. But again, I think that in a perfect world, you would have Kapanen be your third line center, and you would have, somebody else as your second line center, maybe somebody with a little bit more offensive production and offensive dynamism. Pretty impressive that he played over 20 minutes now. Yeah, I mean, Kapanen again. I mean, if you watch Marty St. Louis' interviews, Marty St. Louis loves him some Oliver Kapanen, right? He talks about how smart he is. And again, Marty St. Louis looks down the bench, and when he goes to put players on the ice, he thinks, who can I trust to put out there right now? Who's going to not screw up, and who's going to, who's not going to do things that help the other team, and that's Kapanen. Kapanen, checks those boxes for sure. I have to change my cap for an Expos cap. I have an Expos cap. You know that. I wear it. I'm just trying to wear different hats, right? If the Canadiens lose and I do a show with one hat on, I try not to wear it the next day. So I try to wear something new. And this is a hat I haven't worn in a long time. So I thought I would put it on tonight. So my Expos hat is a little bit tight as well, and kind of gives me a little bit of a headache. So that too. So yeah. Listen, guys, if you're enjoying the content, give us a thumbs up. I see there's 7 or 8 people watching at the moment, but there's just a single thumbs up. If you do like what you're seeing, feel free to hit that button. If you're watching on a replay, you can do the same. Si vous aimez le contenu ce soir, donne le pouce en haut comme ça. Give us a like. Si vous regardez l'émission après le fait dans le replay, vous pouvez faire la même. If you're watching in a replay, guys, give us a thumbs up as well if you enjoy the content. But I think we're going to be pretty much near the end of the show here now, guys. I do appreciate Jamie and PLW, you guys coming along and asking your questions. This hat's hurting your eyes, PLW. I apologize for that. Who else we had? Frank was asking a bunch of questions. Randy, Jordan was here as well. Thank you, Jordan Zimmerman. And Frank as well. Frank was kind of holding down the fort early on before everybody else arrived. But I think that's it for tonight. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. C'était une autre émission. C'est tout pour ce soir. Merci beaucoup d'avoir été ici. On vous apprécie. Thank you very much for coming, guys. I appreciate it. If you do enjoy the content, like I said, give us a thumbs up. If you're not subscribed, hit the button down below. We're trying to get to 500 subscribers. We're getting closer and closer, slowly but surely. We're getting there, and we want to get to 500, and we would really appreciate your help in doing so. So, Montreal Canadiens, PLW, how do I feel about Monty? Monty will get better. Monty will be fine. It just we have to be patient and wait for him to get there. Canadiens are not going to win unless both Monty and Dobesh are firing on all cylinders. So, the Canadiens really have no choice but to be patient. They're both, playing up and down. But, I think we would like, I would like to see them both be a little bit more consistent. And, I think they'll both be fine. It's just a matter of, giving them the time and patience to get back to what they're capable of doing. So that's it for tonight, guys. Montreal Canadiens 3, the Winnipeg Jets 2. Canadiens win in a shootout. The game winner in the shootout from Cole Caulfield. Une finale de 3-2 pour les Canadiens contre les Jets de Winnipeg. C'est Cole Caulfield qui donne l'avance aux Canadiens dans les lancers de punition après une très excitante match, a very exciting, entertaining game to watch. Good performance by the Canadiens, fun time to watch. So thank you so much for joining us. I hope that you did enjoy the show, and I hope that you enjoy the rest of your evening. Tell your friends, if you have friends out there that you think would enjoy the show, let them know. I'd love to have the more the merrier, but I hope you did enjoy, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Have a great night. Peace out.
To Hoffman, Monahan parked in front, docks to Caulfield, fires, scores!
You are about to enter Habs After Dark with Recliner Sports.